Common Interest.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's the kid Commoninterest here today with another new video. Today's Thursday, and every Thursday is going to be Analysis Thursday. What is that? Basically me taking a deep dive into a track that I recently made and showing you guys how I made the track. In this case, it's going to be the track that I made on Tuesday, Turn Up Tuesdays. If you haven't seen that video yet, make sure you go check it out. I'm going to show you guys how I made it. Let's get into it. All right, so let's take a listen to the main character of the entire track, the basis from which the track was built off. Which are these pianos right here. Let's give it a listen. Beautiful melody, very catchy, and it stays consistent throughout the entire song. That's why it's the main character. Side note, I did not play these notes in with my fingers. I actually wrote all the notes in. It started with the higher notes, and then I added the chord progression at the bottom later. An important note to take when you're doing stuff like that, just to give your pianos a more human-like feel, mess with the velocity of all your notes, because when you're playing piano, not all your notes are the same velocity. So when you're drawing your notes in, mess with the velocity to give it some human emotion. Some other things that I added to the pianos were some lo-fi, saturation, some EQ, and compression at the end of the chain. The reason I added some lo-fi was to give it a little character, some warmth, some fuzz. Added some saturation just to give it even more character and warmth, and some EQ. I cut out some lows, boosted some mids and some highs, and compression to glue everything together. All right, so let's get into the second sound I decided to add to the project, which are these flutes right here. I like to think of them as the sidekick to the pianos. They complement each other well, and I almost always layer my pianos with another instrument that sounds like a sign. You know what I mean? It just gives it more body. I didn't want my pianos just sitting out there naked. I wanted it to be coupled with another instrument. So check it out. I also like to add that the flutes give it a spacey, atmospheric vibe. Now listen to it with the pianos. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I also like to point out that my pianos and those flutes are being sent out to a reverb, and I have the flutes slightly panned to the left to give it some space. Next. All right, so after adding the flute and the piano, I thought to myself, this track is sounding pretty cinematic, so I want to add to that feeling. So I decided to add some percussive instruments, and I wanted the percussion, especially the kick drum, to sound like a heartbeat. And what I got was this sound right here. If you play it twice, kind of sounds like a heartbeat to me, but it's actually a distant explosion. So what it actually is like a cannon shooting off in the distance. And I added some EQ to it just to get rid of some sub frequencies, which creates mud, and I boosted some low mids right around 80 hertz. I also added a transient master to add some attack and punch. Also coupled that explosive instrument or kick drum with a snare. Here's how it sounds together. All right, so let's get into the last melodic instrument I decided to add to the track, which are these violins right here. Give them a listen. Beautiful. So your boy added some saturation just to add a little bit of grit and warmth to them. Everything needs grit and warmth, especially if you're creating a cinematic track, in my opinion. That's just me. I also added some compression just to even out my dynamics, and the EQ to really shape the sound, because without the EQ, it really sounds muffled. Check it out. This is without any EQ. Here's with EQ. See how much air that added? I added a lot of top end to those violins, and it really brought some shine, brought it to life. It really needed it. So another thing, your boy didn't play these in. He wrote all these notes in, and remember what I said, velocity to give it that human feel. You know what I mean? And that's it. Oh, they're being sent to the reverb, and they're being panned to the left to give it some space. Now check it out with the pianos and the flutes. Here's everything all together. All right, so let's get into the part of the song called the drop now that we finished the build up. This section is really where the track opens up, some new instrumentation is added, and it starts to tell a story. Let's take a listen. All right, so we have three noticeable changes that happen in the drop immediately, and they are the violins and the epic tribal drums. And the violins are the same violins that I had in the beginning of the song. They're just playing a different melody now, and they're also coupled with another pair of violins, which are just playing the chord progression of the song. Let's hear them soloed. I feel like those two instruments together give the track some movement. It makes it feel like the track is going somewhere. And that, along with the tribal drums, I have them in group B, they just make the beat even more cinematic. I feel like if this track is going to be really cinematic, it needs epic, huge, hard-hitting jungle tribal drums. And that's why I decided to add the tribal drums. They're also, let me take a look at the piano roll. So the tribal drums, if you hit them on its own, they're impactful, but they could be even more impactful if you layered them with a note an octave above. So if you hit them both at the same time, they sound even bigger compared to if you hit one tribal drum by itself. It's a bigger sound. It sounds more full. Also in my drum group, I have these sustaining bass notes, which sound like this. One sec. Here we go. And as you can see, it has distortion, EQ, and compression on it. And it just adds some flavor to the low end. You know, I need some low end movement happening. Needs bass. You know, if you're going to have a drop, you need some bass to be in your drop. And that's my bass note. All right, so let's get into the last two things I decided to add to the track, which are these two saw synths. The saw synths are pretty much the same, with the same effects applied to both of them, but the effects are applied a little differently to make each one stand out from one another. For example, the first one right here sounds like more of a pad versus the other one, which sounds like more of a lead synth. They both also have limiters that are being sidechained to a silent kick to give it a pumping effect. Here's how both of them sound together. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There's something else that I want to show you guys that I'm doing to the this pad synth over here. So over here I'm using the ice reverb on this pad synth, and I am automating the color, and it's giving this synth this really cool sweeping uprising feel to it. Just take a listen to it by itself. I'm also doing the same thing to the lead saw synth, which gives it it's more pronounced on the saw synth. Let's just take a listen to it. And there we have it. Let's hear it all together now. Alright, that's it for that video, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you go leave it a like down below and subscribe. And if you have any questions on how I made the beat, make sure you leave them in the comments below. As always, stay tuned for more videos to come in the future. Peace.